our travels as the unkindled Ash, we meet Gundyr twice. Once at the beginning of our journey, and later on in the past. After the bells toll and the unkindled rise from their grave, they are awaited by the former champion, now judge. Iudex Gundyr bars the path to Firelink Shrine, the coiled sword binding him to measure the worth of the would-be chosen Ash. Sleep well, and enjoy the tale of a knight determined to link the fire, though is destined to fail. But first, this video is sponsored by Gemstone Legends. Gemstone Legends is a super fun and addicting new puzzle RPG mobile game, already with thousands of 5-star reviews. It is available on iOS and Android and is completely free to play. I enjoy the game quite a bit because it hits all of my favorite RPG marks. An engaging storyline, raid bosses, a myriad of characters to choose from, artifacts and items to collect, and player versus player action, all packed into an addicting gem-matching puzzle format that we all know and love. And there are even more game modes on the way soon, such as Guild Wars. It's thanks to companies like Gemstone Legends that help make me make these sleepy time videos, as you don't have to be bothered by loud and disruptive YouTube ads. So be sure to use the link in the description to download and install Gemstone Legends and try it out for yourself. Or you can simply scan the QR code on the screen. Oh, and also don't forget to use the code #Ashen in the global chat for a free new player bonus worth $50. Another big thank you to Gemstone Legends for sponsoring this video. The coiled sword that leaves Iudex Gundyr impaled reads, "This sword is only bequeathed to chosen Ash, as judged by the Iudex, who awaits the arrival of Ash as a scabbard." This makes sense in the grand scheme of things, obviously. Much like the Asylum Demon in Dark Souls 1, the adherents of the Age of Fire needed a way to test the strength of their would-be saviors. But who was Gundyr before he became the scabbard awaiting the judgment of Ash? Well, we get a few clues if we push past the illusory wall just beyond the room we find former and consumed King Osiris. I'll warn you, however, the tale I gazed upon was one of betrayal and tragedy. Here, sometime in the past, in the darkened shrine, we encounter Champion Gundyr. His soul reads, "Once, a champion came late to the festivities, and was greeted by a shrine without fire, and a bell that would not toll. So we know that, at least to start, Gundyr was meant to be the champion of the flame, the same degree of champion that would one day preside over it. But something wasn't right. The shrine was without fire, and the bells were silent. We get a bit more of the puzzle if we read the Estus ring, which is found within the tower of Firelink Shrine, where the bodies of firekeepers are placed for their eternal rest. The ring reads, "This ring was entrusted to a certain firekeeper, but in the end she never met her champion, and the ensuing tragic farce became a favorite tale of the masses." This makes the most sense from what we know to be Champion Gundyr, who arrived late to the shrine to find nothing, including his firekeeper. Now, the idea of this tale being a farce is important. A farce is typically defined as a comedic and dramatic work, often using crude characterizations and improbable situations in the theater setting. But it can also mean a sham, travesty, or a pretense. I believe this pretense was set in motion by the Lothric royal family. The cinders of Prince Lothric read, "The Lothric bloodline was obsessed with creating a worthy heir, and when this proved impossible, resorted to unspeakable means. Suffice it to say, the path to linking the fire is a cursed one indeed." Now, we don't need to get into everything horrible that the Lothric bloodline did, but we know that they were ruthless in their approach, and would even sacrifice their own family in the name of their flame and light. This also includes Gundyr, who I believe was a part of the Lothric royal family, possibly even the oldest son that we know of anyway. The description of Gundyr's helmet reads, "Ancient helm of a set of cast iron armor belonging to Champion Gundyr, modeled after a former king. Gundyr, or the belated champion, was bested by an unknown warrior. He then became sheathed to a coiled sword in hopes that someday the first flame would be linked once more. Now, some of this has to be taken with a grain of salt. Some take the modeled after a former king part to be a direct reference to old King Doran in Demon Souls. And I understand that connection and the fact that FromSoft puts Easter eggs to their other works in games all the time. But one thing they don't do is intentionally tie the lore from one franchise to another. They are often quite particular with their item descriptions. So I think modeled after a former king is a direct reference to a king that existed within Dark Souls itself. The only two figures labeled as former kings are the Nameless King and the Consumed King Osiros. We can visibly see that the Nameless King's armor doesn't look like Gundyr's, but Osiros is a pale drake now, so we're unsure of what armor he may have donned before then. But if I had to guess between the two, I'd say it's more likely it's probably modeled after Osiros. Especially if we're considering the idea that Gundyr was a part of his family, and sons modeling themselves after their fathers in Dark Souls is almost a theme. We can also see the details of the armors of the other members of the royal family that we know of. Golden pieces and trim adorning and hanging from the pieces of the armor, and with dark royal blue cloths being prominent in all of the sets. And of course there are crown designs worked into the helmets, which is exactly the same as what we see going on with Gundyr's armor. It makes a lot of sense to me that Gundyr was a part of the Lothric bloodline, which of course makes it more tragic what his family did, with unspeakable means and such. So the farce then was the fact that the royal family was setting Gundyr up the entire time, filling his head with delusions of grandeur, how he would champion the flame and save the world, etc. But did they know all along that they only wanted him as a pawn, to judge the one who would truly be their champion? Gundyr's halberd reads, Halberd of Gundyr the Champion, received when he was charged with his duty. This old cast iron halberd has the power to break poise and is said to never crumble, seeming to suggest that Gundyr was fated to eternal service from the beginning. And that description says a lot. Gundyr was always meant to play the role of judge from the start, but the farce was always that he truly believed himself a champion of the flame. Betrayed by the very family he meant to sacrifice himself for anyway. We know that in the untended graves he was bested by an unknown champion, likely the unkindled one when we made our way through the area. Perhaps that was also always part of the plan. With Gundyr defeated and weakened, that made him a prisoner, and slated him with what was his true duty all along. The prisoner's chain made from Gundyr's soul helps confirm this idea. It reads, portion of a steel chain used to restrain Gundyr. A prisoner is one who has staked everything on a belief, a proclivity most apparent in the greatest champions. His belief being the lies his family fed him from the start, knowing that he was truly a champion in his own rights, and they would prey upon that very proclivity. Restrained, betrayed, and defeated. Only then did they reveal the coiled blade they would pierce him with, damning him to his true duty. Only when the truce of champions arose and bested the judgment of this heartbroken Iudex would Gundyr rest. The hidden blessing reads, there is a grave in Lothric that sees no visitors, a dark place where rootless warriors rest. The Queen of Lothric alone cared to wish the poor souls good fortune. Perhaps you could call it shame, call it guilt, to visit the would-be resting place of the son she betrayed, all for a flame that would always continue to diminish, always be just out of reach.